I'm really excited, by the way. My name is Minesh Baxi. I have my fantastic friend Kendra, who has poured into my daughter for 3+ years. And I'm extremely grateful to her because she took time every Wednesday, and I'll talk about more about it. And obviously, she can tell more about it. So, Kendra, welcome to the Positive Parenting Podcast.
Good morning, Minesh. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, your life has gone through some changes. I'm sure you'll tell me a little bit about that. So in this conversation, I want you to be very comfortable sharing however you feel people should be paying attention as parents and
Okay.
who are looking to be parents possibly, and generally what your journey has been and how you've been able to influence your son Corey as well. So tell us first of all a little bit about yourself, because not everybody knows you as well as I do for so many years.
Okay. Well, I'm a real estate agent by trade and did about 30 years in the real estate world. And in my journey there, found that I needed some coaching. And so I chose a coaching company called The Core Training. And I've been with them a student and as well as a coach and then an employee for the last 6.5 years of that coaching company, really just learning. I don't know that there's truly work-life balance, but trying to figure out how to make the business better and not let my personal life and my family life fall apart. And learned a lot of great things from the core. And so I have recently relocated and I'm in Tampa, Florida, and slowing down on all areas of my life. And I'm going to learn to live with a little bit more personal time and quality time with my family and my friends and my hobbies. So I'm really excited to see what God brings me in the next chapter of my life.
Absolutely. And you and Greg are quite young and you are empty nester on top of it, right? So you can do pretty much anything you want. You have obviously enough financial security, financial freedom, whatever you want to call that. And you still get to impact people's lives, which is
Right.
amazing because you've been impacting so many people's lives that I know personally. And that's a great place to be as well. So let's jump into being a parent. In your situation, tell me a little bit how the journey was.
Well, I'm a cancer survivor, so I really did not think I would ever have children. And so when I met my husband, I was very upfront and said, "Hey, this probably won't happen." And we just said, "Okay." We were so career driven at the time. We were in crazy debt from other relationships, and so we just kind of dug in and got out of debt and bought our first house. And obviously, God had a different plan for us. I got on an airplane to go see a girlfriend who had just had a baby, and I got sick. And I thought, I have the flu. I'm going to see this friend of mine, and I'm sick with the flu. I'm not going to be able to touch her baby. And I got off the plane, and I felt great. And I'm telling her this, I'm like, I'm not going to touch the baby. And I looked at it from afar. I was great all day that day. The next morning, woke up, I was sick again. And she's like, you can hold my baby because you're pregnant. And I was like, no, 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 no. I don't think that's possible. And so we got kind of a big kick out of it. So she talked her husband into going to the drugstore and getting me a pregnancy test. And so the next morning when I got up, I took it. And of course, as soon as I took it, I threw it in the sink and I jumped in the shower. I was like, I don't want to look at it. And so when I got out, sure enough, I was pregnant. So I screamed at her and she came to the door and I handed her the test and we screamed and cried. And then I had to find my husband and he was actually at a Titans game. And that was before cell phones. So we had pagers and all these kind of crazy things. And so I said, you know what, I'm not going to bother him. I'm going to be patient. So when he got home, he called me and I got to say, hey, I'm coming home tomorrow. And by the way, so that's kind of how the journey was for us. I had a really rough pregnancy due to my previous health issues, but God had a plan and we went through everything to get him to the earth, not early, but on time. And he came on my due date, which was my dad's birthday. And so Corey is now 25 and he has his undergrad from MTSU, got his master's degree at Appalachian State. And now he works for the Greater Nashville Realtors as their governmental affairs manager. So he was a poli-sci. So he likes to read thick books and he's very analytical, and I'm the polar opposite. Everything comes from my gut and my heart and everything comes from his head. So, there's those challenges, but he is a great kid. So we're very blessed.
Well, thank you so much. And we'll cover a couple more things here because in your situation, obviously you have certain set of values. You and I are pretty much aligned on practically most values we can talk about. And you were very kind that you were running a Bible study group that you let my young, at that time, 17-year-old girl to be part of it, So first of all, maybe you didn't know this, but Kim, after 2 weeks of wedding, we were in like February 92, she was diagnosed with lupus, and then she went through chemotherapy for a year and a half, and we didn't know we could have kids. So maybe that is interesting, right?
Yes.
We were lucky that we waited for a few years, and similarly, a friend who had lupus said, Minesh, I'm sure your wife could have kids, and finally she was in good health. So that's here we are with 2 kids. So similar journey in one respect. So talk about, because obviously I want you to tell how you've been able to influence my daughter and obviously how you've influenced your son in providing the values, because not everybody shares these values. Maybe it's not politically correct sometimes. So tell me, how have you been able to influence Corey and obviously in this respect, my daughter?
So, I think that, when we talk about my journey through faith, I was raised, my family went to church and my parents were divorced very young. And so both sets of grandparents were in church. And so it was one of those things. I was raised in church, but then we all get out and we're trying to find ourselves. And so I wasn't following my biblical principles. I had a failed marriage very young. And when I got out of that marriage, it was an abusive situation. And I was like, you know what? I feel like I need to go back to church and fix this. And I just recently found a journal in an old Bible that's in my cedar chest when we were moving. And I read 2 or 3 pages and I was like, wow, that was a really rough time in my life. But I knew if I went back, the foundation was there. And so I got back into church and, believe it or not, started teaching aerobics in church, and got my health and my mind and my spirituality back in check. And so fast forward several years, I met my husband, Greg, and he was not churched either. It was a family that was, they would go to church on Christmas and Easter and those kind of things, but not really biblically based. And so again, I strayed, and but after God gave me Corey, I said to Greg, there is a reason that we have this child, and I want to raise him in a Christian home. And so I started visiting churches. Sometimes Greg would go, sometimes he wouldn't. And long story short, one morning he got up. We had Corey in a Christian school, preschool, and I just knew that God would provide a way for me to leave him in that school. I wanted him to have really good values and be raised with the Bible on a daily basis. And I didn't feel super equipped to be the one to pour into him, because I wasn't struggling on my own Christian journey. And I thought the church and the school would help me. And so one morning on Easter, got up and my son and I were going to church, and my husband gets in the shower and I'm like, what are you doing? And he said, I'm going to church with you all this morning. And I'm thinking, oh, heavens to Betsy. We've tried all these little churches. We've tried big churches. The one thing he said to me along the journey was, I'm not going to a big church. And I was like, well, this was the biggest church in our community, and they did it in a community service at MTSU in the arena. So thousands and thousands of people. So when we got in the car and we were driving, I'm like, hey, by the way, we're going to this monster church today. But long story short, he was touched that day. And fast forward a few years, he was saved. And so from that day forward, we were committed as a family that we would have the foundation of Christ in our home, and we would teach it, and we would put Corey through school and Bible study on Wednesday night when he was in junior high, and then Thursday night when he was in high school. So when we sent him off to college, even if he strayed, he had the best foundation ever. And so that was really our values, and that, we drug him to church when he didn't want to go to church, and when he was tired, it didn't matter. And we were just committed to putting those values at home. So faith is very important to all of us. And I can tell you at 25, he does not go to church like I would like him to. But I know that the principles are there. I know that he has great character. I know he knows right from wrong, and he has amazing integrity and a great foundation and principles that he learned in church. So to bring that full circle, when I moved to Charlotte, I didn't know anybody. And Rick asked me, he said, do you think you would lead a Bible study? And I was like, no way, I'm not equipped to run a Bible study. And he's like, these kids are young. They wouldn't know if you were equipped or not. Just come in and talk to them about the Bible. And so that's kind of how it started. And so I just said, hey, come and we'll have conversation. Because I thought if I started saying, come and study the Bible, that nobody would come. And so we started with a small group and it continued to get bigger. And it was just in the company. And the average age at that time was probably 25 for the employees. So they were very young. And I didn't want to go too heavy. You know, we jokingly say I'm a Bible thumper, and I mean that in a good way. And so I didn't want to go all the way to the Bible thumping. I was like just trying to do intro and finding some simple Bible studies that I could introduce it. And so a couple of the ladies got saved in the Bible study. And so then I was like, well, you know, maybe I would reach out. And so slowly but surely I started opening up to our membership. And so you knew I was doing the female version of the Bible study at the court. And so Muskin reached out and said, hey, could I join? And I was like, I would be honored. And so we just loved having her because there were all walks of faith, but also all walks of age. And so a lot of times, you know, some of us in my age group, even in the 30s, would have a totally different perspective. And then Muska would chime in. We're like, oh, we didn't think about that. She's a new, young 17, 18, 19-year-old Christian. And so she brought a whole different background. So it has been so rewarding. And so during my move, I told the ladies, I said, just give me till the end of the year. So now I'm already starting to prepare to kick it back up in January. And I love it because it's on Zoom. So anybody in any time zone, anywhere in the country, we can join together. So we studied the women of the Bible. We've studied the men of the Bible. And we've just really grown in our faith together over the last 3.5 years on the Zoom Bible study. It's been a blessing. Uh-oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm overwhelmed because it has made a big difference. You'll be glad to know last Friday, Saturday at the First Baptist Church in Daytona, she narrated the nativity scene, and it is a huge, build up there. It's like a huge farm, so they have actors, different sites. So the truck is going from place to place to place. It's 30-minute, and my daughter was the narrator for 2 days, and there were other narrators too, because it's a huge church, a lot of people come there. But the main thing is she did really, really well. You'd be proud of that. She connected well with people. She loves speaking, so that's just part of that, and so on and so forth. So, she's very committed, very consistent, and I'm so pleased because obviously the support that I got from you. So thanks again for sharing those values with my daughter.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk about career. Tell me, how would you, again, whether it was with Corey or not, or in general, how would you share your ideas for the coming generation and also for the parents to influence their kids about career?
About career?
Yeah.
You know, I will tell you, in the past, I had a ton of guilt around, oh my gosh, I work too many hours, or I'm not present as much as I'd like to be, or my cell phone. My husband and I were fortunate enough that he was able to pick Corey up at school, drop him off, had a lot of afternoon time of doing homework and stuff. So when I got home, we had really good community at home. But probably right after he left, or maybe, as he started leaving the nest a little more in high school, I had all that guilt, like, oh my gosh, did I have enough time? Did I influence him enough? Did he see me in the best light? Obviously real estate agents, we work a lot. We are babysitters. We are therapists, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I really, really struggled with that. Did I do enough? And did he see me in the right light? But here's what I will tell you. Fast forward, I'll just give you a quick story. And that's how I know that I did the right thing. In the core, we work very hard with our coaches for what we call a dragon. We want to tame the dragon. The dragon is our business. And so for all these years, he had seen me fight, like, I won the dragon, or gosh, I didn't win the dragon, I got to work harder, or whatever. And so we were moving him out of his apartment. He was graduating grad school. And of course, he'd been on our dime. And so, we kept him on a budget, which I'm sure you're going to ask me about that in a minute. And so money was a big part of, us teaching him to manage his money. And so we're packing up and we're doing things, and he comes out of the bedroom. He's like, oh, Mom, I forgot to tell you something. I bought you something. And he has it behind his back. And he said, I know how hard you worked to win a dragon when you were a student. And he said, I know as an employee, you don't get to win those dragons anymore. He said, but I want to give you the ultimate dragon. And it's right here in my I have a glass cabinet right here and it sits right there. And it's a little blue dragon. And he said, oh, and it only costs $5 because remember, he's on my budget, right? And I'm starting to get emotional about it. And he says, you taught me three things. You taught me how to work hard, and whatever I put my mind to, I could accomplish. Number two, he said, you taught me how to love the Lord. And he said, I called on him many times when I was here. And he said, number three, you taught me how to manage my money, and I'm leaving with a master's degree and no debt. And he said, you know what? I want you to have this dragon. Of course, I'm a blubbering mess. I'm a blubbering mess right now. And
Me too.
but I knew then that we had everything that we had done, my husband and I together had taught him the best three principles we could give him. So career, how do you coach them on their career? I think they watch you. I think the main thing we have to remember is our kids are watching us and watching how we get it all done, watching how we perform under pressure, watching how we take our time when we take our time away with them, that we're really present with them. How do we show up with them in a bad situation and a good situation? Do we drag their butt to church even when they don't want to go to church? So as far as career, I would just tell you guidance for that is they're watching you, and don't be afraid to have conversations like, hey, I had a really bad day today. Somebody did something that wasn't great, or I did something that wasn't great. I really hurt somebody's feeling, or I really let somebody down. But knowing that your character stays in check and your heart's always in the right place, they're watching you. So that, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the best scenario I could give you.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. I think those are very key points. In my case, my children have no option but to be an entrepreneur at some stage. That's because the world changes too fast. That's the only reason I'm saying that.
Right.
Because we are just completing a book called Seven Critical Career Skills They Don't Teach in School. And quite a few of the skills that we are talking about are things which you would know, like selling, networking, leadership, money, stuff like that.
Right.
And Muskan just got back from the BNI. She's joining a new BNI group, which has about 65 members. And the area that she's going to teach other people is how to have a podcast. She has done over 250 interviews, so she knows really well. And one of the ways she's doing it currently is another friend and coach told me, Minesh, start on this project. So we moved to this area, just like you moved to the area. So it's called I Love Flagler County. And
I
she's
saw that on social
yeah, she's
media.
been
Yeah.
interviewing local professionals, successful people for about 15 minutes, and she's building that network. So I've been pushing her
Love it.
hard that she has to have 100 interviews done by the end of January, because that's 100 relationships. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Love it.
She
Love
has
it.
like 15 this week. Okay, so pushing her hard, massive action. But that's exactly what you teach at the core as well. So whatever
Right.
you've been doing there has been influencing our family as well. Let's talk about money, because I just saw the statistic. This was just unbelievable for me. I don't think I have it on screen to share, but I think I might get it maybe on the video there. Is the price of the houses compared to 2000 and now in 2023, you're in real estate, you know what I'm talking about. Like the price of house in 2000 as a median and where it is 2023, it's like 3 times roughly. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and I'm sure you know the prices better than I do. And when you take a car, cars are also 2, 3 times what they were before.
Yes.
Like the average car used to be, I remember buying a Toyota for like $10,000, a long time ago. Today, the same car is like $30,000, $40,000. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So people need to shape up on their money situation, because the median income has barely grown, like maybe 15%, right?
Right.
So what are some of the thoughts? Obviously, you've done a good job of raising Corey about it, but if you were talking to the general population as well, is what are some of the things you would recommend people should do about money?
A couple things, be transparent with your kids. I can tell you, being raised with a single mom and I have one sister, you know, it was very evident that we did not have money, disposable money, right? And so, things that taught me that is my grandmother canned everything. She was a big gardener. I tell people this and they're like, what? But because I'm very fashion, I love fashion now. But back then I loved it, but I couldn't afford it. So I would take my grandmother and we would try on prom dresses and she would sketch them. And every prom dress that I wore in high school, my grandmother made, and so I knew that money was tight growing up. There was no secret about it. So as I got out of school and high school, I took off and went to Nashville and started my career right out of high school. Once I started making money, it was like, I didn't know how to manage it because I never had it, right? And so I'd never heard the word budget. I knew we didn't have money, but they just didn't resonate. And I'd had little to no coaching or experience with managing money. And so when I met my husband, we were both in debt. Both of us came from a home where we didn't talk about money. So I didn't know if we had a dime or a donut, and I know he didn't either. And so once we started making it, we started spending it. And then it was, credit card app comes in. I'm like, oh, I could get a credit card and get a new outfit. I could do this, I could do that. And so when we got together, we had a ton of debt. And that was the number one goal for us. We were like, we're getting out of debt and we're never going into it again. So we took all of our debt and listed it from the smallest payoff to the largest. We rented a house, unfortunately lived in sin a little bit, but we got rid of 2 apartments, went to 1, and we just both decided we would work 2 jobs. And the only rule was we couldn't work on Sunday. We had to be together on Sunday. And because a lot of times we would see the back of each other's heads sleeping, like we were in and out 5 days and 5 nights, both of us, and it might not always align. But we were committed. We packed our lunch every day. We cut coupons. I mean, that was back when Little Caesars pizzas was $5 and you could get 2. So we could eat 1 on Sunday and 1 for lunch through the week. I mean, we were like, we're getting out of this and we're never going back. And so we did. We paid off all of our debt. We saved up 3.5%. We bought our first house, FHA mortgage, and we had arrived, right? And then obviously we had a child and we wanted to make sure that we broke the cycle. So talk about money with your kids. Our son knows everything. He knows that we had bad debt from bad relationships. He knows we got in credit card debt. He knows that you don't buy things when you don't have the cash. It just doesn't happen. So when I got in the Corps, he was 8 years old. And we were like, this is going to be a family affair. We do a personal budget every month. I just did mine yesterday. I did it a little later in the month because I lost my father-in-law this past week and we've been in and out of the hospital. But normally by the 5th of the month, our personal budget is done. All of our bills are paid. Our money is moved to our savings account and then we're done for the month. And so Corey was 8 and we're like, we're gonna make this a family affair. And so we would sit at the island. I would write the checks. My husband would write the numbers into the personal budget form that we use, and our son would stuff the envelopes and he would put the tape on it and he would put the stamp. And over time, he would start saying, what is NES? And we're like, that's the electric bill. And then we would say, last month it was $141 and this month it's $161. Why do you think that is? And we just started talking about money. Like, don't be shy about expressing those things with your kids. I mean, at a young age. And so he got used to doing a budget since he's 8 years old. But the second thing that we did was we said, we're all going to go on a cash budget. So my husband got $200 a month. I got $200 a month, and our son got $100 a month. This is the best gift we gave our kid. And we would go to the bank on the first of the month, cash the check, give him $101 bills. And our rule was, you can buy lunch at school until you run out of money. Or you can pack your lunch in the kitchen for free and put your money in the bank. And that way your money works for you instead of you working for your money. And so he got really fired up when his statement would come with his name on it, and he would get out the check registry and he would put in his deposit and he would put in his interest. And it's 43 cents, but he's like, I made 43 cents or whatever, and we taught him how to do a daggum checkbook. I cannot believe how many people do not balance a checkbook, do not do a checkbook. The debit card is the spawn of the devil, by the way. And so we don't have debit cards to this day. Still, none of us. So we have credit cards with low balances. We put everything on our credit card. We pay it off every month. This is how we taught our kid to do it too. So fast forward, he went through undergrad, $200 a month. We paid for everything, his meal ticket and everything. We had $200. So if you want to go out with a buddy, you want to go to the movies, you want to take an Uber, you got $200. You got to learn to live on what you got. And we threatened him with about this much of his life. If you open a credit card in college, you're disowned. Like, do not go where me and your dad have been. And so he never did. And went through got his master's degree, and we had to bump it up to 300. He's a big boy now, so a little different. but he lived within that budget, and it's surprising how much money he saved he's like, oh, well, I can eat in the cafeteria for free. Why am I gonna go over there? I'll meet you guys after I go eat over here. And he started saving his money. And we told him, whatever you save, we'll match. From the time he was little, all the way through, we'll match your car. And he saved $9,000, and we had to write a check for $9,000. Bought his car on his own, and fast forward, he's still on a budget, 25 years old, just bought his first house in April this past year. And, has a full-time job, is on a budget. It's hilarious. I'm on his checking account with him. And so I told him, I said, I'll take my name off. You're 25, you own your own home. He's like, no, Mom, I want you to stay on there for accountability. Just check it once in a while, make sure I'm okay. And so those are just some money stories that I would tell you about your kids. Get them involved in the money game. Everybody's like, well, everything's on automatic draft. Yes, it is. And that's where we get in trouble. We don't pay attention to when the bill goes up or the Amazon charges go up or whatever. I still write my bills out. I still do a personal budget every month. And I guess I will until I pass, because I said earlier, I'm slowing down, and I'm only able to do that because I have enough money to be able to retire at 53 years old. So
Look, congratulations to you, and obviously all of that is great advice. I'm so glad to hear that. And I think the part that most people don't know is the children need to learn these things. It's not optional.
Yeah.
Because and I made too many mistakes myself, is like it's easy to veer off because we all have a default setting called convenience. I don't care who you are, you know what I mean?
yes,
It's
yes.
a default setting called convenience, and when convenience hits, it's emotional pleasure for the moment, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the tough part is too, when we get people in the core that we're coaching, a lot of times they're financially in debt because they don't know how to tell their kids no. Well, I want my kids to have what I didn't have. Well, my son has everything I didn't have, but in a good way, right? And he knows how to get it on his own. I didn't buy him and put myself and my husband in debt, or, I want him to have healthy habits, and healthy habits are you pay cash for things. And so he has a survival account. He has 3 months of his, all of his bills put away. He never touches it. And then he has a money market. Is funny. He needed a new thermostat the other day on the new house. It's amazing when you start adulting how things happen. And he's like, Mom, so I need to move this $275 over. Which account do I move it from? And I want him to have resources, and I want him to have options. The first thing he didn't go to was, well, let me just put it on a credit card, or let me do same as cash and pay interest. I don't ever want our kids to go in debt like that. And I mean, let's be honest, I could go in a bad place here, but I mean, obviously the government is not a good resource for us to look at. They don't have a good track record. It's not taught in the schools. I mean, if I could change the planet right now, I would wiggle my nose and put money back in school. I remember when I was in school, I took accounting 1, and the first day of class, I got a checkbook and a check registry. And so all the time we were coming in, writing a check, like my car broke down, I had to write a check. And at the end of the semester, I had to turn in the check registry. And if I was on target of what my balance should be, I got an A. They don't even teach that anymore. And so I think our kids are getting set up for failure right out of high school. Here's a credit card, or, you never wanted for anything. And so when you get as an adult, why should you want for anything? I didn't want for anything when I was young. So, we're giving them unhealthy financial habits, and we don't really have good role models in the world to follow. And so I think it starts at home. If I could tell you anything, take an hour a month and sit down with your kids and teach them how to balance a checkbook, or, how to do a budget,
And I think all of this is great advice, and obviously from your own personal success, and not only that, you've helped so many other people follow good habits, adults who have gone off the track, right? And
Right.
you've done a great job of doing that. So before we wrap up, any last thoughts you have? Any questions, comments?
No, I love what you're doing. And I think, we gotta, we're into the next generation, and I know you're so great at that. And that's why I love doing the same thing. I think that we gotta set them up for success, because they are our future. Like, these are the people who are gonna be teaching our kids or our grandkids. And, these are the people that are gonna be opening small businesses and not getting in financial, situations, and keeping the economy going by buying houses and cars. And so I just, my prayer is that we all figure out a little technique that we can put in our kids to make the world a better place, because there's some dark spots in our world today, for sure.
I agree with you, and you are doing your job of brightening up the spots as much as you can, and I appreciate you doing that tremendously. Thanks, Kendra, and I will be in Tampa area sometime in January, so I'll let you know, and it'll be a pleasure to connect with you and Greg.
Please let me know. Would love to catch up. Thanks so much, Minesh. Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.